How you doing, everybody? This is Jesse, aka Drackbolt, creator and developer of Dune 2: The Golden Path. No affiliation with the original Dune 2 game by Westwood Studios many years ago. You do need to own a copy of the original game, however, since my version does use some intellectual property from the original game. Right now, we're about to play a network game between Puxii and the Raffy, basically our two top players right now in the community. And this is actually this was pre-recorded. I'm adding voiceover later on. I do remember that this is an epic game. This is a fantastic game. It's about a half an hour long, and you can see several people are going to observe. There's going to be a little bit of lag on the network, and um, at times we have some observers dropping out, which seems to help a little bit. But we're the people who are involved here are scattered all over the world, so we definitely had a little bit of lag. But even so, I was happy that it worked as well as it did. We should be getting started pretty shortly here. Puxii is hosting. He has a pretty good network. He's in the Netherlands. He is well. Both these players are very much macro economy players. They both go for late game builds, spend all their initial money on economy, and don't necessarily put a lot of effort into micromanagement. The Raffy, he's from Germany. He tends to focus quite a bit on reacting, so he has very quick reflexes, but he's not always thinking so far ahead. He often just has masses of the same kinds of units, and he does have a lot of creativity, but I think he really relies on his reflexes and his macro play. And Puxii, on the other hand, relies on macro more than anything else. He likes to build up an entire army and then just steamroll the opposition. So we have Puxii playing as the Atreides and the Raffy playing as Harkonnen. Both these players often like to play as a Harkonnen. Um, I actually like to see other races get used because the Harkonnen are, in my opinion, they're the easiest faction to employ. Basically, in terms of difficulty, I would rate them with Harkonnen as the easiest, Atreides as in the middle, and Ordos as the most difficult. Ordos have the weakest combat potential, but they have the highest speed. So really, you need to be very aggressive with them. You need to try to own the board, and you need to make sure the fight never happens on your terms. The last thing you want to do with Harkonnen, if you're going up against them, is fight on their terms, because if they're sitting in place and turtling, if they're defending their base, or if they have a large military group, you don't want to try and fight it all in one big ball. You really want to be able to take them apart piecemeal with any of the other factions. So Harkonnen are really, brute force, but their low speed and lack of certain units makes them a little bit limited. You really need to rely on carryalls for mobility with them quite a bit. There are some options that they just don't have, and you need to just make them, you need to use them like a hammer. Basically, you make the fight happen as much as you can on your terms, and then just crush the enemy. They're very good at that. So the Atreides, on the other hand, they have no bonus and no penalty. Basically, their real benefit is their starting position. They have um, almost twice as much space locally near them to use for base building and for refining as either of the other two factions. So they usually have a really good economic advantage, and they can own more of the board right from the start. And again, sorry for my allergies. Every once in a while I make a snorting sound or something. I've had allergies all my life, and there's no stopping it. My nose is always stuffed up, and it's always gonna be. So sorry about any distraction or any noise. So we're getting underway here, and we do, like I said, we have a little bit of lag. You can see that some of these harvesters are moving a little bit slowly, and hopefully I can synchronize the audio with this video well enough. Again, I'm not actually controlling the video right now. I'm only replaying it and then recording this audio so that I can dub over. But I'd like to make several comments on how this game is going to go. So from the Raffy's perspective, you see he's got at least six refineries. Puxii has five. Puxii likes to get an HTF, a high-tech factory, with some carryalls out right away. That's very important for him. Some other players might throw out a lot of harvesting operations and then try to micromanage them through the worm sign, and try to get a little try to save all those extra credits, because one high-tech factory plus one carry-all plus enough power from a wind trap to keep it running, you're looking at about 1,400 credits, if you want to approximate. So it's a lot of money. You could build more than 3 more refinery operations with that. So that's a personal choice, and I think Puxii is always going to end up with high-tech factory, and the Raffy's doing the same. He's got a House of Ix up, but other than that, he's just going massive refinery. And actually, the Raffy has a really interesting tactic. Something that he found out is that I don't know if you noticed it when he was first building, but what he'll do is he'll put down basically one wind trap and then drop a whole pile of refineries, basically as many as he can build, which usually ends up being 6 or so. And the thing is that even though some of them are unpowered at any given time, there are always at least a couple of refineries that have power, so he can keep producing those initial harvesters even though most of them are unpowered, because as one building finishes and another building finishes, there's still harvesters being built. So it just kind of somehow he's worked it out. So even in a really low power situation, he can still get all these refineries out because they build one at a time, and then each of the harvesters will also build one at a time, basically, and he'll end up with a really large economy, and then he can just drop down another wind trap to repower the refineries and have them available for the harvesters to come back when they're actually done harvesting spice. So I like what he found out there. I haven't seen anybody else do it yet. I think it's a really good tactic. I imagine a lot of people will try it now, but it's fun to watch. So the Raffy, I see he's already got a light vehicle factory, maybe working on a heavy vehicle factory over there on the left. Puxii, I saw, did have an HVF already, and Puxii usually likes to go very strong on the vehicles. I don't often see him use a lot of infantry unless he has to. He really seems to prefer the heavies, but that will come back at you after a while, because any kind of a foot unit in this game has some very strong advantages against certain other unit types. And I believe somewhere in this game we will be seeing, I'll definitely be able to point out a couple of situations where some kind of foot unit would have served Puxii much better than light vehicles or heavy units. That was a sandstorm that just rolled through. Those occur every once in a while and black out everyone's range of exploration. This game, it functions a little bit differently. There is no fog of war, so the way that radar map works is a little different from other RTS games. Basically, once you explore an area, you have permanent vision of it. But every once in a while, the sandstorms come by and just reset all the vision there is. I can't really show you that because I'm the observer, but if you ever get to play this game, then you'll definitely see that. And of course, the game is a free download, so you should be able to just go and grab it right now, assuming you're actually running a Windows computer. There is a Linux version that's available online, but it's old, and I had to kind of stop development on it because it's a big pain in the butt. There's no other way to say it. Developing on Linux is just not fun for me. So Windows just makes a lot of things easier. So even though I can get versions out for Linux, I just don't even want to. I don't even want to power up that virtual machine anymore. Anyway, back to the game. The Raffy has a little bunch of quads building up, and down here I see Puxii is still motoring up his economy. The Raffy is probably working on mobile construction vehicles, because one of his very, very common tactics, what he almost always does, is drop out 3 or 4 construction yards to add on to his building potential, and then he usually puts at least one down right next to his enemy to be sort of a proxy, and then he surrounds it with turrets and just makes it sort of a staging area for his later attacks. So a little bit of conversation going on here with the players. Puxii is continuing to build up his economy. I like the fact that he got out the light and the heavy vehicle factories early, just a single one, and I imagine these next 2 buildings that he's got going up on the left there, those might both be heavy vehicle factories. In fact, I think they are. I don't think they're refineries. So, and again, I can't really tell what they are, because in this game, you only see, when you see buildings in construction, you only see the parts and supplies and everything that'll be needed to construct the building in place until it's actually finished. So just a little quirk of how I designed the game. It works pretty well. I like it. So Puxii-TheRaffy is starting to go heavy quad and heavy tank. And he's got a few rocket turrets up right at the front of his base for defense that if he took an attack from infantry right now, that would do really, really poorly. All those heavy vehicles that he's got and all those rocket turrets down there, right at the base of the Raffy's base, um, right at the bottom of the screen where we were just a second ago, then I mean, if you just threw several squads, sorry, there's a cop car going by. If you just threw several squads of infantry right there into those turrets at the front of the base, those infantry would do so much damage because the turrets are just, they're very weak against infantry. Infantry do extra damage to buildings, and then all those tanks wouldn't really help a whole lot either. So, so realistically, if right here at this point, and there's the proxy. There's always that proxy construction yard from the Raffy. So realistically, Puxii right now, if he flooded the front of that base with infantry, he would take it down. And if he was doing more scouting, then he would see that he has that opportunity. Um, Now all these quads in the back would have given the infantry some trouble, but that could have been supported with a few tanks who hung back and let the infantry handle the tanks and the rocket turrets. A lot of stuff he could have done. But just another great example of how important it is to do scouting. So on the other hand, Puxii's base, he really doesn't have any static defense. He's got quite a number of tanks, but he really doesn't have any other recourse if he suffers some kind of an assault. And again, if the Raffy was doing some scouting, he would be able to see that and be able to, just like any other game, even though you get permanent vision, it's really important to do frequent scouting in this game. I haven't seen anyone sort of re-scout their areas since the last sandstorm we had, really. I haven't seen anyone really taking some units and just ranging around to explore some new areas. So I'm not sure how much these guys can see, but it might not actually be a whole lot. Now here is Puxii moving around, moving out with looks like 13, 14 tanks, regular combat tanks. The worm sign just ended, so he wisely waited for that to quit before he sent his heavy units across. And it looks like he's actually going to go after that proxy. He's going to go after that construction yard out there on the outset. So obviously he had vision of that at some point. I'm not sure I agree with what he's doing right now. In fact, I don't. He's making as soon as he got up here and he saw there were walls with turrets behind them, he should have retreated and reformulated his attack plan. And then especially when he sees all these quads, immediately should just be grabbing all of these tanks, just select them in a box and hit E, hit the retreat key, and just make them all get out of there. Because right now they're just wasting their lives. They're not delivering enough damage when they need to. They're just hitting walls for the most part. Looks like that outpost is going down. It goes down. There's one tank retreating, but all the rest of these guys, I don't know what they're hoping to accomplish really, because they went straight at the worst possible angle to try and handle this place. Realistically, he could have moved them around somewhere else, or just sent in different units, or outranged the whole thing with a couple of rocket launchers, blah, blah, blah. But regardless, I think he just should have retreated and saved many of those units. So back over here, he's got mass sonic tanks already and a bunch of trikes to support. Looks like they're going to act as cannon fodder in the middle, get the rest of those trikes in there. There they come. So you definitely want some cannon fodder in front of sonic tanks because they do not last long when they get fired upon, but they hit harder than any other unit in the game. So get those trikes up there. Trikes, obviously, they're not the ideal cannon fodder. They're expensive as far as cannon fodder goes because you're really paying for their speed and their scouting ability. Their combat potential is low. So there goes a heavy vehicle factory. The tanks managed to take that down, but here come the sonic tanks. They're going to do a heck of a lot of damage. And all these tanks, more than likely, are just going to get wiped out. He does have enough trikes there. Yeah, you see a lot of sonic tanks, about 10 sonic tanks there, and they will just evaporate almost any other unit when they all fire at once like that. So he's going back up to the top, not really waiting to get his forces together for a minute, but now here come the sonic tanks. He's probably going to lose a few of those, but he will get that con yard. He's also determined to kill the rest of these buildings to stop the Expo from rebuilding and all. So here go the walls and here go the turrets. And he managed to retreat almost